first year students from management, MBA and PGDM. So you have already received the introduction of Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan during the convocation ceremony, so I won't repeat it. So this will be essentially an interactive session. Mr. Gopalakrishnan will not speak directly from his side, but he will respond to all your questions, whatever you have. And that of course will be a learning process for all of us. So you can ask on anything which you want to ask. You can ask about Infosys, you can ask about the IT sector, you can ask about industry in general, you can ask about the economy, whatever you wish. Mr. Gopalakrishnan is a very, very erudite person, very much travelled. So I am sure he will be able to respond to your questions. So just raise your hand. Maybe I will identify you, and when you are asking, just introduce yourself and then you go ahead with your question. So let's have the first question. Yeah, okay.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Rudy from Postgraduate Diploma in Management. My question is, can you kindly explain about the startup village where you are the chief mentor in Kerala? How would help the budding entrepreneurs and innovators?
So the startup village is an experiment to get students to take on entrepreneurship. In a state like Kerala, where parents encourage their children actually to join a existing business, we thought we need to create a culture for entrepreneurship, and that's the idea behind creating Startup Village. It's an incubator. So if a student has a idea, they can bring it to Startup Village, and the Startup Village will give you space to develop that idea into a product. They'll also help you get mentors, get funding, help you open a bank account, things like that. Work with a auditor to register your business, things like that. It's a complete incubator. And when we started, we said we should create 1,000 startups in 3 years. And I'm glad to say that we crossed 1,000 in 18 months. And so we have now set the target as 3,000 startups in 3 years. I'm confident that it will indeed happen. It's a joint venture between Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Government of Kerala, and a private company, MobMe, which itself is a company incubated out of Technopark in Trivandrum. And it's wonderful to see a young company which is about 5 years old coming forward to create an incubator along with Government of India. My interest there is as you said, chief mentor. And I strongly believe that in colleges, in academic institutions, we must create an environment where students can look at entrepreneurship as an option. It's not an option for everybody, because entrepreneurship is quite challenging. All companies don't succeed. In fact, 7 out of 10 companies do not survive. They close down. So it's not for everybody, but for those who are interested, I think it's something that should be looked at. Now, if I ask you, who are your icons today, you'll probably say Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, Sergey Brin, Larry Page, Michael Dell, Bill Gates. Many of them started their companies while they were studying. Some of them dropped out. So the thought is, why wait till you complete your education before doing a startup? Second, in educational institutions, we don't teach students about failure. But in life, you will actually face failure many times. It's how you recover from that failure, what you learn from that failure, that's very important. The resilience, the adaptability. Third, when is it actually quite safe to fail? When you are a student, when you are supported by your parents, family, when you are mentored by teachers, professors, etc. Not when you are on your own, when you have to take care of your family and you have added responsibility. So for many of these reasons, I strongly believe that we need to introduce entrepreneurship in engineering colleges, maybe in management schools, and that is the experiment that is being tried in Kerala now. The Cochin University and Kerala University, as part of their curriculum, has recognized entrepreneurship as one of the activities of the students. They have given them 20% attendance waiver to start a company and 4% grace marks if they start a company. So that's the experiment. It's about 2 years old. We still have to see how it works. Even if 3% out of this 3,000 companies survive, that itself will be about 100 companies. And it will be an important number for Kerala to create an ecosystem for startups in Kerala. It is indeed changing because many parents now are telling their children, go ahead, start a business. Well, you can start one here. It's all started by students and who are people who have just passed out. So do it.
Hello sir, this is Sheikh Miskin from first year MBA. Sir, recently Infosys stated that they will recruit 650 business graduates, and that too predominantly from the countries like US and UK. And my question is, why you are not preferring Indian management graduates and the engineering graduates? And the second one, in what way we are lagging from them, sir?
So, see, this is the challenge with news bites, because they just put we are recruiting 650 people from around the world. But what they don't tell you is that we recruit 30,000 people in India, right? And a small percentage outside, very small percentage outside. So we recruit all over India, from management schools, from engineering colleges, and we recruit outside India because we have significant presence outside India. In fact, actually 97% of our revenue comes from outside India, and only a small percentage of recruitment happens outside India. So we do recruit, and we recruit from all over India. We go to many of the premier management institutes in India.
Okay sir, what you are expecting from TSM students, sir, to get in Infosys?
I was told that we don't come to TSM to do campus recruitment. That's something I can look at. But you don't have to wait for campus recruitment. You can actually directly apply also. We have open recruitment going on, and you can apply directly.
Let's have a question from one of the ladies.
Let me stand up.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Meena from first year MBA, and my question is, being an executive vice chairman of Infosys and president of CII, what are the challenges you faced, and how did you manage them to get through it, sir?
As president of CII, what are the challenges? That will be interesting. See, an industry body is expected to, one, promote growth of industry in India. And this year was extremely challenging for Indian industry. About 70% of the reasons are domestic, that means created by us, and about 30% are created because of the external economy. We had a global economy that was growing very slowly. So the industry body, as an industry body, we have to work with the government to promote policies that will bring back growth to the industry. Second, the trust of leadership in any institution in India today is actually very low. Be it an industry leader, a government leader, a civil society leader. And that's something which is not very good for a society like our society. Because if we don't have trust, then we cannot ask people to take the tough decisions, tough choices, make the tough choices that are necessary for growth, for change, because change always involves pain. So without trust, people don't actually willingly make sacrifices. So there are many things which we did in order to improve the trust, improve the image of the industry, change the perception of business, leadership, etc. Now, as Infosys, we are going through a difficult period because we are growing slower than some of our competition, and we need to make sure that this transformation that we are going through will increase the growth rate, will allow us to get back to leadership position in the industry. And again, it's also about building trust with all the stakeholders, customers, employees, shareholders, as we go through this transition.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Rajesh Khanna of First MBA. My question is that Infosys is yet to fully explore avenues like China. Now that a memorandum of understanding on IT cooperation has been signed between India and China, what are your strategic moves to capitalize on this?
So we have a presence in China. We have about 3,500 employees in China. We have 5 offices. We are trying to sell into the market. Now primarily those centers support global clients, that is multinational clients who are operating in China. We are trying to sell into the Chinese market. It's always very difficult to break into markets like China, Japan, homogeneous markets that are just emerging. And IT spend as a percentage of the GDP is significantly lower than the developed countries. In the developed countries, IT spend is typically about 1 or 2% higher than GDP growth. So if the GDP of the US is growing at 3%, IT spend is about 4 to 5%. China is growing at around 8-9%. Its IT spend typically will be around 9-10%, but from a much lower base. And that's the challenge. So if I look at India, for example, our IT spend is about $30 billion, growing at 20%. So the incremental business that we can go after is about $6 billion in India. Whereas the US, the IT spend is close to about $1 trillion. And it is growing at around 4 to 5%. So we are really looking at a market that is growing at around $40-50 billion. And that's the difference. So we are looking at China. It is through our presence there we are exploring that market.
You said that it's tough to get into homogeneous markets like China and Japan. Like in that case, my next question is like, it's pretty straight, like your competitors, say TCS, were capable of, it is said in the newspaper that your competitor TCS was successful in getting most of the projects from Chinese owned enterprises. Like by investing more in China to understand the market. Like why is that Infosys not forcing this?
See, different companies have different strategies. That's nature of business, right? Everybody will not do the same thing. So I can't comment on another company. I can talk about us.
You, yeah.
afternoon, sir. I'm Padmaja from MBA. My question is that the contribution of IT sector to Indian GDP has increased from 6.4 in 2008 and to around 7.5 percentage in 2012. So what do you think is the major factor for this, and did you expect this sudden growth during your initial years of venture?
See, as a developing country and as a country which has very low penetration of technology, information technology, India has to overinvest for the next several years. So that's the reason why the IT spend in India is growing at 20-30% because of low penetration of information technology. There are several sectors which today use technology very sparingly, not up to global standards, and that's the reason why technology spend is higher. Does that answer your question? Or yeah, I do expect India to catch up as it becomes a developed country in terms of IT investment. In fact, for a country like India, where we need to look at inclusion as a national agenda, we need to look at affordable healthcare, affordable education. So there are a lot more reasons for us to invest in information technology today. In fact, we need to accelerate that, because that's the way we can bring all the people into mainstream, all the people to take advantage of the opportunities that are provided by the development that's happening in India. And if you want to bring quality education to the remotest village, I believe you can't take the teachers there, you can't create schools there, you'll have to use technology to take education there. That's what I believe, and that's the reason why we will continue to overinvest in information technology over the next several years.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir. I'm Yohini, pursuing MBA. My question is, what are the skills you consider most important for a leader, sir? And tell us who is your inspiration.
What is the most important?
What are the most important skills you consider for a leader?
For a leader?
To be a leader, what skills do you consider more important?
See, the leader must inspire others to believe in themselves, to take on tasks that seem impossible, but indeed make them possible. A leader must lead by example, which means that he or she has to be a role model. People must look up to them, must have good value system, must be willing to share, must be willing to share knowledge, anything that can be shared actually. And in a country like India, leaders also must live simply, because the environment is such that most people are poor, and so you cannot have a display of wealth in a country like India, because it increases social tensions. So that's what I believe. And what is the second part of your question?
Who is your inspiration, sir?
See, many people are inspirations in different aspects actually. So in fact, on leadership, Narayan Murthy has been a tremendous inspiration because he leads by example, and all the things I talked about, he clearly represents. A technology visionary is somebody who is giving back hugely, Bill Gates. Somebody who creates amazing products that everybody loves to own, Steve Jobs. So in different aspects, different people are
And my question is, being an eminent person in the IT sector in India, what's your views about the Indian economy?
I think I started with that. Clearly, we are underperforming at this point. At 5% growth, we will not be able to satisfy the aspirations of the large majority of people. We will not be able to create the jobs that are required to meet the expectations of the youth who are joining the workforce every single year. We need to create 12, 15 million jobs every year if we have to meet the expectations of youth. And that's going to be our challenge for the next 30, 40 years. It's an interesting challenge because if we meet that challenge, India will transform itself to a developed economy. We can go from $1,800 per capita as our income to maybe about $4,000, $5,000, and our economy becomes 1.8 trillion economy to maybe about 5, 6 trillion economy. So that's the opportunity that I see, and it will completely transform the society. We have seen transformation in the society in the last 20 years. Significant changes have happened. Now you're going to see over the next 20 years even more amazing transformations, and that's what I see as the opportunity for Indian economy.
How do you expect the performance of the Indian economy in the year 2014?
Well, the government says about 5.5% growth for the GDP. I think it will happen.
Hello sir, this is Mervin from PGDM. It is very evident from recent observations that service sectors are performing better than manufacturing sectors. I would like to ask you that, do you think the manufacturing sector will recover in the near future?
See, manufacturing sector requires a lot of support. First and foremost, they require support from environment to create an enabling set of regulations or less regulation. All the way from allocation of land to labor laws and things like that. We need an environment where these businesses, these manufacturing companies can operate with less overheads when it comes to operations, administration, etc. Because all of these add to the cost of the company. Second, we need to fix the logistics transportation challenge that our companies face in India. It's quite a challenge to move goods, physical goods, and that's the reason why services which don't depend on movement of goods, etc., actually benefit in that sense. So that's something, again, we can address that. Third, power. Manufacturing requires power, etc. So that's something, again, we need to address. Land. So there are lots of things that we need to do. I am very confident in saying that Indian manufacturing is competitive. You can just look at automotive sector. Today, India exports more cars, especially in the small car segment, than China. We export more cars than China. Our component manufacturers are OEMs or suppliers to all the major automotive companies in Germany, Japan, anywhere in the world, because of their quality, not cost alone, but quality. So I am very confident about the capability of Indian manufacturing. That is true in apparel, textile, garment, high precision manufacturing, automotive sector, in pharmaceuticals. Many sectors, I can go on and on, where Indian manufacturing is very, very competitive. If you create an enabling environment in which Indian manufacturing can do well, you will see manufacturing leapfrog. from about 16% of the GDP to what we want, 25% of the GDP.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Yamini of First MBA. And people of South India, they are very conservative when it comes to choice of career. And how do you think one can break those barriers, cultural barriers? And did you experience any such obstacles when you were starting your career?
I don't know. This is something which I think happened maybe in the last 200 years, probably, or something like that. Because if you look before that, South Indians were entrepreneurial beyond imagination. Every single state has gone out and conquered rest of Asia. Right? You know, if I look at South, you know, Kerala, the first trade happened through sea routes from Kerala, you know, during the before Christ actually was born. And it's the same is true, you know. So the Pandyans here in Madurai, right, went out and conquered the island communities in Southeast Asia and things like that. And they had a trade. Madurai had a trade with Rome. So South Indians were actually highly entrepreneurial. Maybe something happened in the last 200 years. It's easy to change that. I know I talked about one experiment I'm doing in Kerala to change that perception. So I believe it will happen. We just need to say that if we need to see, being entrepreneurial is not just about starting a business. Being entrepreneurial is your outlook to life, which is when you see a problem, do you expect somebody else to solve it, or you decide that I will solve it, or I will be part of the solution. That to me is the entrepreneurial spirit. And today what happens is, when we see a problem, we expect somebody else to solve it, we don't solve it. I think it's changing. With youth, it is clearly changing. It's probably the generation which was born just after independence, maybe the generation that was there through the 90s. That's the generation which probably lost the spirit of entrepreneurship, because the avenues for entrepreneurship were very limited because of the regulatory environment, the license raj that existed in India. But the generation that was born beyond 1990, I believe, will be a very different generation. And you can see Bangalore, for example, is a hotbed of startups. The number one city for startups in India today. So I think it is changing.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, the election fear has started nowadays, and all are expecting a change in the central government. As a senior and experienced person in the industry, what is your opinion on its impact in the industries, like telecommunication or something, in the technological field?
See, I strongly believe that stability is what industry looks for. We want certainty. So after the election, irrespective of whichever government comes in, we will see a better environment for business, better environment for job growth, economic activity, irrespective of which government comes in. So that's what I believe. It's also proved with data. If you take the top 10 states in terms of growth in India today, these are states which are growing more than the GDP of the country. Some states even growing at 10% or more. They are ruled by 6 different political coalitions. So irrespective of which coalition it is, they all support economic growth, because ultimately economic growth is what creates jobs. And politicians clearly understand that one of their primary responsibility is creation of jobs. So they will all support economic activity. There isn't much difference. Now, politics is such that when you are in opposition, sometimes you oppose everything. And that's what we see right now.
I'm Saranya of first year MBA. My question is on your higher education, sir. It is like you have pursued MSc in physics and you have done your MTech in computer science. What made you to do in two different fields?
See, when I was doing my pre-degree, which is like the +2, my family wanted me to become a doctor. Unfortunately, I didn't get admission for MBBS. I applied for one college, didn't get admission. So the choice then that was left to me was to continue taking a BSc in biology, but I had interest in physics, so I took BSc physics and MSc physics. Now, while I was studying MSc Physics in IIT Madras, luckily I got introduced to computers and I liked the computer field. Didn't know much about it, didn't know that it's going to explode like it did. It's, this is 1977, but I just was fascinated by computers, and again, luck plays an important role in every one of our life. Ours was the first batch of MSc that was admitted to a master's program in engineering. First batch. And I was lucky to be selected to do an MTech in computer science. So that's what happened.
Last two questions.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself, Sarguru from PGDM. We are very happy to have you here. And my question is, can you share some experience about CSR activity of Infosys?
So, Infosys operates at two levels. One at the corporate level, second through the foundation. The foundation's focus is typically the poorest to the poor, the stakeholders that we don't touch through the corporation. And so the foundation looks at building hospitals for poor, building schools for poor, supporting students with scholarships, etc. That's the foundation. We also built 10,000 toilets in northern Karnataka, about 2,500 houses for people affected through cyclone, so things like that. At the Infosys level, we look at working at the area of education, improving the quality of education, supporting research through the Infosys Science Foundation, etc.
Any last question? Anyone?
Lady here.
Hello, sir. This is Shiva from PGDM. Sir, I would like to know your perspective on whether the current status of Indian companies, where they tend to be the back offices of overseas MNCs, should they continue to be in this status, or should they actually strive to get into the bigger league of being an actual product development companies?
See, there are multiple business opportunities. Services, providing business services is a huge area, and the risk profile of a services company is actually very different. In fact, significantly lower than a product company. Plus, we had competitive advantage in the services business because we could bring about a disruptive model into the services business, that is remote delivery of services. And that's the reason why Indian companies entered into this field, because one, you had a disruptive innovation. Second, it's less risky to do that. You can do that in remote markets. Product business, higher risk, higher investment, brand matters, being in the market matters, and Indian domestic market is not big enough for the product companies. Now, having said that, you will see Indian companies having very strong presence in the product business. Some you may know, some you may not know. Finacle from Infosys is the #1 core banking solution in the world today, like the SAP in the ERP space. If you go to Dubai International Airport or Terminal 5 in London Heathrow, the software that runs the airport is actually a software that's developed by an Indian company. It's IBS software. Many of the payment gateways which largest banks use today is developed by an Indian company today. So you will see more and more business applications developed by Indian companies. Now, I saw actually when I was giving out the diplomas, many of you or many of your seniors have joined a company called Soho. And if I remember right, they are in the office productivity application space using the cloud model. Again, and they're doing well. So again, a product company out of India. So there are many examples of product companies out of India, and you will see many more in the future.
I would like to add another question, sir. Where Fortune 500 giant like Honeywell has recognized the importance of Tier 2 cities and had installed its base in Madurai, why is Infosys reluctant to come and install in Tier 2 bases where actually the graduate base is more high and people are really motivated and they are committed to their work?
Selling Madurai.
Thank you. You have to sell harder. You have to sell harder because there is competition for you.
So you'll have the first mover advantage, no sir, if you come here.
There is Indore, there is Nagpur, there is the Mohali, there is Jaipur. They're all aggressively competing. Okay? So you have to sell harder.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So
thank you all very much.
We have had a very, very productive and insightful session. So thank you, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, for sharing with us. I do hope that with Mr. Gopalakrishnan coming, this will be the start of a very long and productive relationship between Infosys and TSM. We hope many more executives from Infosys can come in different functional areas and share their experience and perspective with us. We'll definitely request Mr. Gopalakrishnan to help us at his level. So thank you very much once again. Before we break, may I request Mr. Ramaswamy to present a small memento from our side to Mr. Gopalakrishnan. Okay, thank you.